Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Friday of week number 16. It's really hard to believe that it's already Friday of the week and we've now seen all 10 cards. This is not a food show. It was yesterday, but today we did have Mr. Cartoon on Rickey Henderson and King Saladin with the Roberto Clemente. Two great cards that represent the artist very, very well. At the same time, if you're new around here or a new fan around Project 2020 or trying to figure out what Project 2020 is all about, please hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications so every time I post a video, you are notified so you can become more informed around Project 2020. I want to say thank you to everyone who has recently subscribed to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. At the same time, if you're new around here, my name is Chris, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CRT_sportscards. Also, my website, crtsportscards.com. If you go to the menu page, there is a Project 2020 page. That's where all the statistics are at. We have photo images of all the players, of all the artists. We have everything you want right there. So please check that out. Everything will be linked in the description below. So it's Friday morning, we're about to find out two more print runs, but what did we learn on Thursday? And on Thursday we learned that we can indeed print a card under 4,000 as the Nolan Ryan Jacob Rochester comes in at 3.7 thousand. Right in my range, but actually a little lower than I expected. I thought 3.9, 4,000. I thought getting under 4,000 was a little more difficult than this, but that card was closer to 3.5 than 4. Then on the Griffey itself, I was very surprised that card just squeaked over the 6,000 mark. And if you bought a copy, and if you were one of the 22 people who got that card over 6,000, thank you so much, because that card fit into my range from 6 to 7.5. But that was really a wide range here. I thought that card was closer to 7,000 based on the Old Man Allen results, but it came in at 6,021. The Griffey results are also why I'm now lowering my Ichiro range from 5 to 6.5 to 4.5K to 6,000 and nothing more than 6.1. I just don't think there's enough juice right now in the Ichiro with Grotesque, as Grotesque is the lowest printed artist, to get him over 6.5, especially with the Griffey. To me on this Ichiro, I'm looking right now middle 5 range, 5.5. Maybe even lower, we'll find out, but I don't think this card gets anywhere near the Griffey at the end of the day. Now, when you look at the George Brett from Natural, I'm sticking with my range 3.75 to 4.75. I think it's just going to top the Jacob Rochester Nolan Ryan. I don't know if this card gets under 4. If we are going to see it under 4, it's going to be 3.9, 3.95, but I'm still thinking right around that 4K range for this card. But that begs the question, something we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Do these lower print runs mean the cards are more valuable? Is 3.5 right now in July the same as 3.5 from May? Where do these cards align from a value perspective when you look at the future? Before we do that though, let's dive into King Saladin with this Roberto Clemente. This is my second favorite card of the day. I really like the Mr. Cartoon Rickey Henderson more than this card. And King Saladin, for me personally, is not an artist that I have connected with from a visual perspective. I'm not the biggest fan of his cards. I know others are out there who really like this work, but it's just like Grotesque. I really like Grotesque and others do not like Grotesque. This is the beauty of the set. But let's take a look at his progression so far and where we are so far with Roberto Clemente. So King Saladin, this is his 8th card at the moment. His first one was Ken Griffey Jr. Then we had Derek Jeter, Don Mattingly, Willie Mays, Ichiro, Nolan Ryan, and then most recently with the Bob Gibson. When you look at Roberto Clemente, this is his 9th card overall. His first one was Mr. Cartoon. Then we have Natural, Grotesque, JK5, Roberto Clemente, Old Man Allen, Matt Taylor, Sophia Chang, and then recently with the Andrew Thiel. If I were to pick a favorite card on King Saladin, and it's just because I haven't connected with his artwork yet, it has to be the Ichiro, the Space Needle. I think it's a great card overall. Now on Roberto Clemente, I have two favorites. No surprise, I'm a homer here. 1A and 1B is going to be Grotesque and Natural, but 1A is going to be Natural over the Grotesque on this card. I'd be curious though, in the comments, what is your favorite King Saladin? What is your favorite Roberto Clemente? Also, what is your favorite Mr. Cartoon and Rickey Henderson? And now here's a very important section. Where do we think the Mariano Rivera by Ben Baller and where do we think the Hamburger Mark McGwire by Gregory Siff are going to land this time tomorrow morning? After 24 hours, the results to me were very surprising. I was shocked to see these results, but at the same time, I do not think they tell us the whole story of these two cards. So after 24 hours, Mark McGwire has 81 pre-orders and Mariano Rivera has just 55. So a couple of takeaways on these numbers of 81 and 55. Mark McGwire's 81 pre-orders as of 24 hours are the largest this week. So before anybody starts hating on this card even more, the fans are speaking. This right now is the top card of the week when it comes to 24-hour pre-orders. This is why Gregory Siff did it. This is why artists are rewarded for taking risks. Look at this card. Look at the performance. 81 pre-orders. It's the top of the chain right now after 24 hours. But does that mean it's going to outsell the Mariano Rivera? I right now do not believe, even with a pre-order lead of 26 copies, that it's going to beat the Mariano Rivera. We know one thing with Ben Baller's numbers. The numbers never correlate the right way, the same way the other cards do, because the people buying this card are very different and they're from outside of the hobby, which is what we need in Project 2020. So right now, on Mark McGwire, from a print run perspective, I'm looking at 6 to 7.5 thousand on this card. It's easily going to top the Griffey. It's going to be the second highest printed card of the week. I don't think the Clemente or the Rickey Henderson today gets to that level. So right now for me, 6 to 7.5. And then on the Mariano Rivera, I'm using, again, our data from Ben Baller's previous releases to make this print run projection. The one thing that Ben Baller's cards have always had are super, super low eBay penetration rates. And for any new listener of the show or new watcher, eBay penetration is strictly taking the pre-orders divided by the overall print run and figuring out that number. Typically speaking, we're seeing right now 2%. Before it was 4%, but right now it's right around 1.5 to 2% over the past couple of weeks. But Ben Baller's cards have always been like 1.2 or lower. His last card with the Derek Jeter, 0.55%. His Cal Ripken came in at 0.81, and then his Dwight Gooden was 1.24. So we have the Ben Baller math, and then we have the Project 2020 math. So I'm pulling from the Ben Baller math category here, and the range for this card, and I'm looking at it from a 1% eBay penetration to a 0.89. There is no chain, there is no autograph, there's just an iced out grill and a very subdued Mariano Rivera, but it's a great card overall. So for Mariano, 8,000 to 9.5 thousand. If that card sells 8,000 copies, it's just over 1% eBay penetration. And if it sells 9,500, it's going to be 0.89, which is just a touch over that Cal Ripken. So we'll see where the card lands. But right now, after 24 hours, I like 8 to 9.5 thousand. And I'm sure as of right now, that card is going to sell 10,000 copies and I'm going to miss. But it's going to be fun. But we'll see. So now let's shift away from Ben Baller, Mariano, Gregory Siff, hamburgers, and let's get back to our bread and butter, which is the market overall. And where do we stand after yesterday? Again, yesterday in the market, a real muted day. Nothing really too high, nothing really too low. All of those charts will be on the website for you to reference here in a little bit. But I think the big question we have right now is, when a card prints at 3,700 right now, like Nolan Ryan did, does that make the card more valuable in relationship to cards around maybe the 30s or 40s when they were printing at that number? So I think in the immediate right now, the next few weeks, just because the Nolan Ryan did not sell 4,000 copies does not mean it's going to jump to a Nolan Ryan F dot, which is $42, which is card 52, which is right in that similar range. You know, Griffey, the Taylor one, number 53, is $42. I don't think that this card is going to get to $40 altogether. And there's for one simple reason. Right now, that card sold 3,700 because the interest was not there. The reason why the cards, the first player cards, second player cards are worth more than MSRP and some are worth over $1,000 is because a lot of people missed out on those cards and have gone back in and wanted to obtain those cards for their collection. The only way this Ryan card, in my opinion right now, or any subsequent card after this, gets up to 50, 60, $100 is if we have a new fresh batch of customers or people coming into the Project 2020 economy. So if you know anyone who has not been around or wants to learn more about this, I would recommend you get them into the Project 2020 economy. At the same time, if baseball season comes back and MLB promotes this, there could be a huge influx of new buyers. But until that happens right now, I don't see how these cards, even if they print at 2,500, even if a card is the worst thing possible, like Ben Baller releases his Mariano Rivera sketch card from Twitter the other day, and that sells 2,500 copies, I don't think that makes that card any more valuable or even comparable to a card that is from the early stages. Two different economies. You're dealing with people who were not involved with the project at the beginning, like myself, versus now you're dealing with people who are not into that card or into that artist. So if we can get more people into the economy and more people interested in Project 2020, that is when you're going to start seeing cards at 3,500, 3,600 gain more steam. Now let's get to the Mr. Cartoon Rickey Henderson. And there's one simple reason why I like Mr. Cartoon cards so much. It's probably because of where I was raised, growing up in West Texas, being Hispanic, the tagging, the lettering, the murals. I just love Mr. Cartoon style. I love his cards overall. And this is just another fantastic Mr. Cartoon card. Even though it really feels that he forgot the E on Henderson and he threw it in there at the end. I don't know why that E's up there, but it is there and it's kind of funny. Because once you see that, you can't unsee it. So it's interesting. But also when you look at Mr. Cartoon, and by the way, if you have not watched LA Originals on Netflix, you need to watch it this weekend. And that is why this photo is up here. But now let's take a look at Mr. Cartoon's progression and Rickey Henderson's. So this is Mr. Cartoon's 8th card overall. He led us off with Roberto Clemente, then George Brett, Doc Gooden, Jackie Robinson, Don Mattingly, Mark McGwire, and then recently with the Mariano Rivera. The one thing that Mr. Cartoon has done, and you can see it in his artwork, he has made these cards his own, and that is why they are so fantastic. Now when you look at Rickey Henderson, this is also his 8th card, and we just had him recently with the Sophia Chang, but his first card was Joshua Videz, then Matt Taylor, Blake Jameson, Ben Baller, JK5, Jacob Rochester, and then of course that Sophia Chang. So when you look at Mr. Cartoon, what are my 2 favorite cards with Mr. Cartoon? To me, it is this Rickey Henderson. I really like this one more than any of his cards. I also do like his George Brett. I love the blue colors, and I don't know why in this project I'm becoming such a fan of George Brett, but I am, and I could barely tell you anything more about George Brett other than the Pine Tar incident. So it's an interesting revelation so far in this project, but maybe people are just making great George Brett cards. Now on Rickey Henderson, if there's one card I wish was done later in the progression, is JK5's card. He is going to start using more color, and I can only imagine what that card will look like with the color. But to me right now, it's JK5, Matt Taylor, and possibly this Mr. Cartoon. I don't really have a favorite Rickey Henderson card. I have cards I really like, but there isn't one where I have to own it, and it's probably because I'm a Mariners fan. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more Week 16 news and notes from me about Project 2020, please click on that playlist on the screen right now.